The Bite Me podcast is coming right up, and it is brought to you every week right here on YouTube by Freedom Boats. It is the best shallow running boat on the water, and there is a model perfect for you. The Chiquita 14, the Eagle 16, the Patriot 18, the Commander 21, the beautiful Warrior like I have, the Warrior 23, or the big boy that runs so shallow, the General 26. Chet Moore and Pooty can customize it however you'd like, and there's a dealer near you, whether it's the Boatyard in Kemah or dealerships in San Antonio, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, Port O'Connor, Houston, and Aransas Pass. That's Freedom Boats or freedomboatsusa.com. What do you know? My favorite hour of the week is here, and so are most of the usual suspects. Captain Dean is on his way to Austin for some business, but we got Captain Caleb McCumber, as always, Captain Scott Knoll joining us here in just a second. I am John Lopez, and we got Captain Chuck Naiser joining us as well here on the Bite Me podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget to join the Facebook group page, which is always a lot of fun just as a standalone, but it's also where we get a lot of the questions and some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. And of course, you can pick up the podcast wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Podbean, where we always recommend that you subscribe so you can get your podcast updates ASAP. Or you can get them anywhere else you get your podcast. That's iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere else. Like it never happened. Captain Scott Knoll is joining us just like it never happened, right at the perfect time. The guy likes a grand entrance, and nobody likes a big entrance better than Captain Scott Knoll. And we're gonna get started here. Scott, just one thing he reminded me when I said God, I reminded myself when I said grand entrance. This whole group plus Captain Dean is going to be at the fishing show in 2 weeks, and we're going to bat lead off as we often do there. So don't forget, put it on your calendar, and we'll be there at 5:30 on Wednesday, February 12th. You don't have to worry about blowing Valentine's Day like we did last year, but come on in. We're going to do it a little bit different this year. We're going to have Q&A, heavy Q&A, of course, but we're going to get some comments here next week. So get your questions. If we don't get to them today, we'll get your questions here and we'll ask them at the fishing show in a couple of weeks over at the George R. Brown. All right, let's get started. And Chuck, we're going to get to you in just a second, but I want to start with Caleb. And obviously, Caleb, you fished a lot over in Louisiana and beyond, certainly all around the Gulf of, right here in Texas Gulf. Or Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it. But either way, what are you hearing just in terms of post-freeze? By the way, 1 week ago today, it started to snow. It started snowing a week ago, and here we are. It was a bad freeze, but what are you hearing, Caleb?
I've hated every single season that we've had in the past 7 days. No. Every junk season that Texas can throw at us has happened in 7 days. Mm-hmm. Well, Louisiana, I saw a lot of dead fish pictures from Louisiana, which seemed almost inevitable. Like I said, I was over there right the day or two before the freeze, and the shallows were loaded up with fish. And those particular shallows I was on didn't have access to deep water. And so if they're there, they're in all the other ones. So Louisiana didn't look that good. However, Texas, from what I've seen and what I've heard, it looks like that we did okay with it. We were all cautiously optimistic last week that the fish were in the deeper water, the tides were lower, the cool down had happened more gradual, and it looked pretty good. I was down south fishing, I don't know, a couple of days ago. Today's Tuesday, right? So a couple of days ago. And I traveled probably 30 or 40 miles. It was early in the morning when I first started. The water temp was about 48, and I didn't see much for fish on the flats anywhere. The flats where we fished, there were some deeper indentations in the bottom there. It went from, I don't know, probably a foot deep to about 3 foot deep, and those things were loaded up with fish, but there wasn't much on the flat. And then on the way home, the water temperature had heated up to about 55, and the flats were just alive and looked healthy and well. So again, cautiously optimistic that this one wasn't as bad as we thought it could have been.
Now, Scott, one thing that you've said repeatedly, obviously we've all experienced it, is give it a few days and maybe, we'll start to see some. Have we given it enough days? It seems like we have.
I think so. I mean, we had a pretty good warm up behind it, and that's one of the it's a bit of a wild card after these
Mhm.
freezes. If it stays cold longer, then the decomposition doesn't start up as fast, and they float slower.
Mhm.
And I think that's where that more like the 10-day thing comes in. I, I believe if we would have had a major kill, we'd have at least seen some signs of it. I know there was some dead fish around Galveston. A lot of people reporting that, the clear water from the winter, and they're seeing fish dead on the bottom in places, some of the canals and some places that they go when they get into cold water.
Mhm.
But it's not a big, massive kill. I think Louisiana got swatted pretty hard. I
Yeah.
think they got kind of what we got in 83 and 89 is what it's looking like over there.
Why was that?
It was
Just
just where
lingered
the
longer?
push, well, it was where the push of the cold went. You always have that bulge that pushes the furthest south.
Mhm.
Sometimes it hits us, sometimes it hits further south. Um, that last freeze, it didn't bother Galveston as much as it bothered the middle and lower coast in
Mhm.
February 21. It's just all about where the biggest push of that cold water go or cold weather goes.
Yeah. And we're
Well,
excited. Go ahead.
I think the water temperature in Louisiana was quite a bit warmer when this hit than it was over here.
Mhm.
Um, I was in Dulac, Falgout area, and I was seeing, right around 60 degrees, and they're acting normal. They're not seeking shelter. And then boom, it just got cold real quick. Like Scott said, those big bad freezes we had, it went from warm to real cold real fast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they didn't have time to get out.
All right, so don't want to keep our great guest waiting. Chuck, we got a lot to talk about with you. I know Scott's got some questions. Caleb, and as I mentioned, Dean was kind of upset he couldn't be here either, but he's taking care of some business on the road literally right now. He actually might weigh in. He's going to try to figure out his phone in the car at the same time, so Godspeed to him. But I want to get to a bunch of stuff with you, Chuck. But first, your thoughts. You said something interesting before we came on air, and I think Caleb might have just alluded to that. They were already in the deep water here, correct?
Well, to me, the water level has everything to do with the survival of these fish, as does the water temperature and the duration of that temperature.
Mm-hmm.
I watched I watched the NOAA station at Mustang Lake, which is obviously everybody knows where that is. Over near San Antonio Bay, and that recorded the lowest water temperatures that I saw. They were down, 36, 37 degrees, but they didn't stay there that long.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the key to the survival is the water level before an event, what's trapped up in shallow water. If there's no shallow water, they're deep, and they're going to survive as good as they can.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get into why you're here. Just we've been wanting to get you on. When Dean was not going to be here, it's a perfect day to get you on. Scott, I want you and Caleb to really hop in here as much as you want. As much as you
I
want.
may need to leave.
If Scott's talking, you may need to leave. Yeah, and by the way, I didn't mention this when we were introducing the show. I should have called Scott the slight tractor problem guy and Caleb the MFing guy. First of all, Caleb got a letter from. Go ahead and you tell the story, Caleb.
Well, y'all may wonder what validates me as a fisherman, and it says right here on my hat, Elite Pro.
Elite
And
Pro. It said you got the title that says
when you get one of these hats
mm-hmm.
that says Elite Pro, you are indeed an Elite Pro.
You're an Elite Pro.
What that is my level of I guess pro staff or whatever with Grundens. And I was telling John, Grundens, I think they started like 100 years ago in Norway. And I got this thank you letter from them with this Elite Pro hat. And it was addressed to MF and Caleb.
MF and Caleb. It's actually addressed to MF and
I
Caleb.
mean, it's signed by the Grundens team and everything. MF and Caleb. And this is going to have to go on my wall. Oh, here we go. 99th year of Grundens. So at 99 years ago, some proud Norwegian people started a business, and they've led to me.
And this is where they've gotten. They've gotten to Caleb. Meanwhile, Scott, you're saying, hey, man, I might be just a little bit late, which you timed it perfectly, by the way. but you said I have a slight tractor problem, and I'm like, there's no such thing as a slight tractor problem. What was going on there?
It actually was. I had tractor in for some service. The ranch that I work for over there next to me, and I'd taken it in there to Victoria, and I drug the trailer in there this morning to go pick it up, and I made a little couple stops. And I get a call from the service guy, and he says, "Hey man, we started it up to move it out in the parking lot, and it's leaking fluids. Like, y'all just serviced it. Why is it leaking fluids?" And he said, "I don't know. We're gonna have to dig in and find out." So I was waiting, and I had it timed out where I knew I could get back here if they could get it done by this drop dead moment, because I didn't want to have to go back in there again tomorrow. And sure enough, he called me and he says, "All right, we figured it out. It was a hose clamp."
Oh, usually that's what it is.
And
So you had to drag an 8,000-pound trailer back.
Yeah, 8,000-pound tractor back in the misting rain. Well, the little GPS, that time to beat that the GPS puts up there for you, the time to beat was 3:23.
All right.
Said, okay, well, except that I'm pulling the trailer and I'm in the rain. So let's add a little bit to that.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, I pulled in the driveway at 3:29. I didn't think that was too bad.
That's excellent. All right, Chuck, let's get back to your story here because it's one that a lot of people, if they don't know, they should. But you were among the first really to get going with the GCCA. I used to have a sticker and I lost it. I wish I hadn't of the GCCA, but now CCA and certainly Flatsworthy. And Scott and I have talked about Flatsworthy a lot, but let's get you on to talk about first the genesis of it. Maybe go back to the old days.
Well, there's a lot of old days. Look at me. No, of course, I got to go back to the GCCA days a little bit. And I could talk about that way too long. But I had mentors there. I was a younger man, obviously, in I guess I joined that in 76 or whenever they formed. I've been there that long. But you had Walter Fondren, you had Dusty Rhodes, you had all of the businessmen in Houston, David, Cummins. All of those guys were my mentors. I followed them in the GCCA journey, and it was wonderful. So I remember how they moved, how they did things, how they thought, how they reacted. And so when it came to the Flatsworthy deal, that I didn't have a plan. In the GCCA, we had a plan, and that was to combat the commercial fishermen, period, end of sentence. And that was a universally accepted mission. Flatsworthy, totally different. Flatsworthy was born out of just the disgust on what some of us had seen in the evolution of behavior out here, going from way back. I won't even go there, but in 2012, 13, 14, to see the redfish rodeos, to see the unfair chase, to see the clamor of people, to see guides teaching people the wrong way to do things, and those people thinking it was the right way. And so you go like, okay, I've gone from this civility and true sportsmanship to chaos. So what am I going to do? Am I going to go home and cry, or am I going to duck and go, or am I going to do something about it? And so I just decided I just can't do it. I just can't sit by and not talk. And I always get in trouble doing that. But, if you might not listen to, you might not change your behavior by listening to someone complain about the way you're acting, but at least you'll know in the back of your mind somebody else doesn't really like it. And you have to take these stands, and you have to make these movements. You have to give it time. You just can't quit. You go along. Like I said, I had no end game. I didn't know where it would go. And I still don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But I know this, that if you keep talking the talk and don't quit, that you have a chance of making a difference. And you can't fix all of this stuff. Oh, I hear your pups. So I don't know what to say about it. It's, you know, you have the Survivor CCA, and they're at a whole different level than what we're in. They do wonderful work. They do magnificent work. They fund a lot of really important projects that I wish I could do, but I can't. And so, but I think Flatsworthy has a grassroots appeal and has a real importance in the little things that add up over time. So I don't know what else to say. I probably
let me. I know Scott and Caleb want to get in here, but before they do, I just you triggered my a thought I had, and that is the comparison of the reception you got from anglers back in the CCA days to the reception you're getting to Flatsworthy now. Because is that encouraging or discouraging or what?
It's sobering. Okay.
Yeah.
The reaction we got from anglers was total support. I mean, who could not support this? The people don't want to be told that they're doing it wrong. They have a fear of being excommunicated from a resource. So I got more enemies than I got friends. I mean, I do. And that's just the way it is. I'm not running. I'm too old to run a popularity contest. I'm not running for beauty queen or most popular. What I want to do is I want to call it the way I see it. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to say I'm sorry. And I'm going to learn from it, but I'm not going to quit. But I see Flatsworthy as extremely important. And a lot of people like us and a lot of people don't. So the ones that don't are the ones out here being, I coined the word and I use it, and it's been used by everybody in the Parks and Wildlife from top to bottom. It's called jackassery. And so
I knew where you were going. I knew where you were going.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's true, and you know it gets a response and it sticks. But it's a great word because that's what was going on. I mean, we can all use this resource if we're mindful of how we do it and mindful of the things that aren't critical to us, our success, that inhibit somebody else. And I think all of us can think back to the times when some of these things weren't issues because there weren't anybody here, you know. But now we're here, and I'm not complaining about it. I'm not bitter about it, but I want to be realistic about it. And you know, when wave paddle and pole came along, and there were talk of you had to pole into the back legs to come out and all that, it just, you know, I didn't want to be told that. So I get what people are saying. I'm saying, let's think about what we're doing to this resource. We don't have one. You know, my deal is they're making more boats, but they're not making more water. And that's, I mean, that's the truth.
Go ahead, Scott.
First off, Chuck's one of my favorite people.
I wonder why.
One of those guys that you're proud that you get to know him. And, you know, we've spent a lot of time together over the years. To tell you how little of a plan he had in the beginning, he invited me and Dean to the first meetings.
Oh, man, that's a big mistake.
That'll give you an idea. Now, those first meetings were interesting because he brought in, he kind of told me what he was thinking. And then he brought in people from Poland skiffs, people from burn boats, airboats. Every segment was brought in there. And Dean thought, okay, this is going to be a show, man. There's going to be a fist fight out in the parking lot before this is over with, because he brought in every group that is mad at each other. the wade fishermen, the drifters, the polars, everybody. And that, it was a ballsy move, honestly. I mean, to put everybody into the same room like that, just to get it started, just to get a conversation started about what the expectations are between the groups. And that's what's been the positive that's come out of it, in my opinion, is more people now understand why airboats run up against the bank. And more people understand a poling skiff pulling behind you while you're wade fishing, chest deep, and I pull in between you and the bank. It's not a big deal. It's not going to hurt you. Instead of the yelling and the turning around and fussing and all that stuff, just a better understanding of each user group is what has been a big positive to me.
What are your thoughts on that? On just the genesis of it, there, Chuck?
Well, I don't think we did an award-winning job on it. But I do think Scott's right. We brought it out and we brought people together. You get into the sensitivity training nonsense, and I'm not good at that. So I think we kept the dialogue going, and from those early meetings with the airboaters came a lot of hatred. I mean, it was both ways. I hated them and they hated me, and there's still a lot of that lingers. But I don't really know what to say about it, except that we're trying, and if people don't want to listen, they're going to get tired of me talking, because I'm going to keep on doing that. And we got away from that a little bit. Harvey really changed the course of Flatsworthy. We went from being able to have meetings to not being able to have meetings. During that time, I flurried out and got with all of the NGOs, the universities, the research group, the state agencies, and I spent a ton of time with that, meeting them and engaging in. So it opened up this resource avenue to offset what we could not do in the etiquette anymore, because we couldn't have meetings. And social media wasn't at the level that it is now. So, dadgum, I thought I had a puppy here.
He put it on mute.
Let's see.
He put it on mute.
But anyway, so our course has been altered by circumstance and by events. And, then with what happened here in 2016 at St. Charles Bay with the harvest, pillage, strip mining, I mean, that overwhelmed me. It did. It's like, no. So that set a different course. And unfortunately, I'm kind of all in or all out. And I just devoted my full attention to that. And we, in the meantime, we did make some videos on etiquette, burning shoreline, boat ramp stuff. And, so anyway, we didn't abandon that route, but we got consumed in this oyster question.
Yeah, well, there's so many levels on that, and you already have a new member. Sherman said he already signed during our conversation here, signed up with Flatsworthy. But where is Flatsworthy now in terms of being active in some of the things you're doing, membership, etc.?
Thank you for asking. Okay, so all right, we got a super busy. I'm too old to be this busy, but this spring and through May, we have February the 8th. We're bringing Jay Clayberg, his wife Chrissy, and we're bringing. I don't know if y'all. I hope y'all have looked at his PBS work, Chasing the Tides. 6 episodes. They're dynamic. They're important in educating the public as to the challenges that we have coastally. And so episode 4 has Matagorda Island, and then episode 5 really is to Corpus Christi. So we're bringing those 2 episodes here. Saturday, February the 8th. It's free. We want to get everybody out. Jay Clayberg has been a wonderful warrior for Flatsworthy forever. And we'll show 2 episodes, and then we'll have a panel discussion with Felipe Prieto, who is I love Felipe. I don't know if y'all know him, but he's the godfather of Aransas National Wildlife Refuge and a huge conservationist. We'll have a panel discussion. So we're doing that. March 13th, we're going to have the fly fishing film tour back here. And then on May the 31st, we're going to have another dinner. And so that's where we are. I'm heavily involved still. We go through here and we're successful in creating a sanctuary in Mesquite Bay, 75,000 acres that's off limit to the harvest. And it's a sanctuary, and it's a huge event. Mm-hmm. We had 7,700 people, 21 organizations come in and support us to the Parks and Wildlife, and they created it. So in the aftermath, you have all this enthusiasm. You have followers. You owe them an afterlife. I mean, you just can't go and assemble that many people and just go like, okay, that's it. Mm-hmm. So now the big push is restoration of what was damaged. That is I wish I'd have never seen this side of it, because it's fraught with permitting and fundraising and all of the engineering, and it's on and on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. But we owe it to the people. I mean, we said something's wrong, so let's attempt to fix it.
Yeah.
And that'll give those people a more complete feeling about the commitment that they made. So we're doing that. I'm on 2 committees. I'm on an oyster advisory committee for the chairman of the Parks and Wildlife, and then I'm on what's the other? I'm on one for the Parks and Wildlife. So heavily involved in trying to get the dynamics of reducing further the decimation of our public reefs. There's Flatsworthy. I went to my board, and I worked for 13 months, and one of those got nothing done. And I just said, I've had it with this. If you go work hard and you're sincere and you can't accomplish anything, and the time for that committee was over, then you got to analyze yourself and the situation and say, look, what's going to come from this? And the answer is, if the other side doesn't want to do anything, that you can't force them to, nothing. So I'm going to oppose. I said, I want to oppose the harvest of oysters on public reefs, period.
Okay.
Period.
Good.
I want to support certificate of lease, where they go in and lease the bottom and build their own reef. And I want to support mariculture. So I'm coming out with more billboards that say, stop the strip mining. And so that's the way I see it. I see the oyster industry as a dead end street. I see it as a threat to the future of our resource. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, I still want to raise awareness through videos on how not to act out here. So we haven't abandoned that tack.
Go ahead, Scott.
So you were in Austin last week, and you said something about the possibility of an oyster license buyback or something along those lines. Is that where y'all working towards?
Yeah, I got into this committee for chairman, and I'm going like, we've been here and we haven't done anything. So I told him, I said, I wrote up 2 papers. I'll send them to you, Scott. I think you'd like them. I called it out, and I said, y'all have not come up with any solution to any problem. Here are the solutions. Mm-hmm. And in dealing with oyster buyback, they had no idea. And when I say they, I'm not pointing a finger at the part. I'm not. I'm just saying, in the work in the committee was going nowhere. And I had, they talk about license buyback. But how does that work? Mm-hmm. What do you do? Put up a sign in a store and says, How about buy your license back? And then nobody comes. Well, what have you done? But if you go buy 17 licenses out of 545, what have you done?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
answer is nothing.
Yeah.
So I came up with a plan. I think there's 471 that are active and 545 that are out. I said, you guys, you oligarchs that run this industry, you keep saying these people will sell. Bring those names to us. Bring me 230 names of people who will sell. I'm going to offer them X amount of dollars in a short period of time. We're not BSing this thing for 3 years. You've got 90 days to take it or leave it. If 175 of those people do not sign up, the whole deal is off. I mean, this reverse auction where they come in, well, I want 35,000 for my horseman.
Yeah.
How are you ever going to get that done? There was no plan. Now there is a plan, thanks to some guy I know.
Go ahead, Scott. I know you got more.
It's a start. You know, the shrimper buyback, that wasn't real popular in the beginning either, and it got legs and eventually got going. And some smaller organizations were able to raise some money to buy back a few of the licenses. CCA bought back some, bought back a lot of them. So maybe it's just baby steps. Maybe it's
we've been baby stepping it for about 4 years. And bought 7 licenses. And I'm not, I got to say that the shrimper buyback and the oyster buyback are not even close to the same. And the reason is, in the shrimping industry, you can have, that was a much differently structured industry than the oysters. In the oysters, you have oligarchs who have retail outlets who control the sale of every oyster in this state. A person who has a boat cannot go oyster and shuck them and sell them. They've got to be sold through a retail outlet that's approved by the state and the health department. So the old song, my country sold to the country store, they're the country stores. So these centers, these oligarchs, have a different relationship than the shrimper could take his boat, go get his catch, put it in the back of his pickup, and haul it to Temple, Texas, and sell it. And it was totally legal, and he did.
Yeah.
So you cannot say. I don't think you can compare the two.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's a totally, you have to get into these people. I love these oligarchs. They're Ukrainians, Croatians. I mean, just wonderfully. I'm a bohemian. Okay. We speak the same. I don't speak the language. I like the same food. I mean, but the whole deal is, there is a sense of family in those units. I'm not going to name names, but one of the oyster guys there in Seabrook or Kingman, wherever the hell it is, I've been to all of their places, might have 30 boats. He's got a relationship that's lasted years with those boat owners. Okay. I mean, they've been through ups and downs and good and bad and loaning money and family issues. Those are family units. And the oligarchs have those people have a sense of loyalty to the people that work underneath them. Yeah. So they do not want to be the bearer of bad news. They want me to do it. Okay. They want me to say it's over. And then they'll run back and say, okay, this deal is over. Y'all need to sell. Yeah. I told Jennifer Pollock the other day, I just love her to death. I said, some business school ought to come in here and create a PhD study
Mm-hmm.
of this situation because it's probably the most interesting I've ever seen. It's so dynamic, full of so many factors that are not commonplace in our world today,
Mm-hmm.
and values that are long lost, such as loyalty and all of that. I'm sorry, I get way out here.
No, listen. I that's a perfect time to remind people to search out Flatsworthy, and you will have answers and you will have information that people need. That's why we wanted you on. I do have a couple more things here before we let you go, and we'll start talking a little bit more about the fishing aspect here on the podcast. But my first question is just, I think what a lot of people are thinking, I'm thinking it right now. You've been on the front lines. You've been at the very beginning of two of these great organizations. If you could just tell us what in your gut are the prospects, like for our kids and our kids, like after all this, if it gets done as you continue to work, like what are the prospects for our habitat?
They're bleak unless we try. And with the dynamics that I see going on with all of the things that we don't want to talk about, sea level rise and all the, all the other things, we've made an extreme effort to work with kids and to involve the youth. We do that through AgriLife and 4-H and all of that. You have to build people to come in behind you to carry on the banner. Because look at it, I'm 80 years old. So, my lifetime warranty is much different than someone else's. But look, you don't win unless you try, and you don't lose if you don't quit.
Yeah.
Period. Now, are we going to be the typical user group that just goes off and belly aches about whirling disease? Or are we going to try to do something about it? And you don't have to know what you're doing. You just have to get out there and, eventually right, wrong, and indifferent will show you the way.
Yeah.
And I see the importance of youth, of education, of fighting the fight. We can't lose this place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look at restoration costs to fix it back, they're unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
To fix the Mesquite Bay complexes, $80-90 million.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you stop some of the bleeding before it becomes bleeding, and you don't have to spend that kind of money? So we're blessed with universities, with NGOs, with state agencies, with people who care. We are blessed, but they're not as efficient if we don't try to help them.
This is incredibly fascinating, and we're keeping you longer than we promised we'd keep you, but it's really good. Scott, do you have anything? Because I got one more, and then we'll move on.
Now, go ahead, John.
All right. So Scott has answered this question. Caleb has answered this question. Dean has answered this question from you, though, as you mentioned, being as I mentioned, being here from the very, very beginning. What about those people wave their hand at you and say, it's as good as it's ever been. It's not what you think. These people are just, scare tactics, etc. You've lived it. What do you tell them?
There's a real curious, important dynamic called baseline entry point. And every resource is viewed by everyone who uses it. Your viewpoint, your interpretation of this resource is different than mine because I entered it at a different point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So just because if you come in here today and see what's going on, you're not going to have the same feeling that I do. But I'll promise you in 10, 12, 15 years, you will. Mm-hmm. So why don't you listen to somebody, this was paradise.
Yes, it was.
It was paradise.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought I was a great fisherman because I don't care what happened, I could go find fish. Well, stupid, you had it all to yourself. So I hope I answered that question.
You did. That's a perfect way to answer it. And
I get that people mock me. They oh, that old man. I hear it. Just doesn't bother me anymore. And
good for you.
I don't want to be bitter. I really don't. I want everybody to enjoy this place, but take care of it and appreciate it.
All right. So before we let you go, are you the guy that we have to blame for Scott and Dean becoming the fly fishermen that they are?
No, they did that on their own. Yeah, no.
So you were one of the, if not the pioneer for fly fishing in Texas.
I was right there at the forefront of that too. I've been at the forefront of some really neat things, and to be there for the redfish wars, to be there for this stuff going on, and listen, I'm gonna tell you, the fly fishing for redfish is a hell of a story. If you go back to when everybody thought it was over in October, I'm going like, you're out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are you talking about? But they had a season to them, to the fly fishing shops. Well, like, you got to come down here with me. So, it was more fun than you could ever imagine.
See there, Caleb? If Scott couldn't do it, maybe Chuck can teach you how to fly fish.
I just wish Chuck would have let him keep believing it was over in October. I start in October.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Chuck, man, this is not going to be the last time, whether you like it or not, that we have you on.
I love being here with you, gentlemen, and I love the work that you're doing. I mean, because you're reaching more people than I am. We're lockstep into the same issue. Let's make this a better place than it was going to be. And
let's do it.
Anytime.
Let's do it. I'm gonna let you go, and and based on your previous comments, I'm gonna say something that maybe you don't hear enough. God bless you for the work you're doing, man.
Oh, man. Well,
thank you, Chuck.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chuck.
I need your help. Everything you do, Chuck.
I need your help.
All right. That was I could have gone forever. I know sometimes I like to keep the topics kind of moving because it's fishing and it's moving, but that could have gone forever. Caleb, from your perspective, how did he put it? It was entry point. What
baseline entry point.
Baseline
entry point. That really resonated with me. Now his entry point was clearly even earlier than Scott and mine. So I could only imagine, but I'm talking like probably late 60s, early 70s is when I really, really got into it. And your entry point was later than that. So I thought that resonated a lot. And I actually wrote down some of his quotes. We can't lose this fight. And then he said, it's going to be bleak unless we try. It was just really, really interesting stuff. I'm interested on your perspective from the whole thing, Caleb, having been the next generation.
Well, I said the same thing that he said whenever I talk about I caught way more fish back when I didn't know what I was doing. And it's the same thing he was saying. Whenever I started, there's a lot more fish and it was a lot easier to go out and catch them and have a good time. And he's got a dang solid point. Everybody, hey Gary, everybody thinks that everything's fine, everything's normal. Well, what is your normal? What are you comparing this to?
Yeah.
If you're I compare it to stories I hear from the 80s. I wasn't even fishing in the 80s, but I compare it to the stories, and these guys are talking about how good it is, and I'm looking at it now, and there's just been a solid decline between then and now. Then no amount of unicorn farts is going to flatten that out and bring it back up unless we do something about it.
Exactly. And Scott, your thoughts, and then I'm going to go to Dean. And Dean, the reason I muted you is your window's open and I can hear nothing but wind when on the mic. But I'll get you here in a minute. But Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, the baseline entry thing, that's the biggest argument I get into with the younger guys coming up. Yeah, I've had a bunch of them send me messages, man. Y'all are always talking about how it's not as good as it used to be, but man, it's awesome. It's getting better every day. It's I catch all these fish. I do. They're excited about catching a limit. Great, you caught a limit. The limit's 3 now.
Mm-hmm.
We used to. That was a poor day. I mean, that was oh my God, what are we doing wrong if we only caught 5 or 10 fish or 15 fish? It wasn't unusual to go out and catch 40 or 50 trout in a day. That was just what we expected to do. If you went on, the surf got hot in the summer, it was literally every cast. And that's that baseline entry point that he's talking about. That was where I came in. And if I walked into the sport today, yeah, my baseline would be totally different. I'd look around and say, okay, this is the way it's always been. And it looks fine to me. And then, like you said, 10 years down the line, then you start looking back going, man, it was really good when I first started, and now it sucks.
Yeah. All right. So, Dean, I see you got your Uber driver. You're good to go. Hope you treat her well. You're on your way to, I believe, Austin. But some of the quotes, and I know you know Chuck very well, and you're sorry you got to miss him, but he's going to come back on. But I just love these quotes that he said. They're making more boats, but they're not making more water. As Chris Colin just said, you can't win if you don't fight, and you can't lose if you. I mean, you can't win if you don't fight, and you can't lose if you don't fight. So
that is kicking your ass, Sean. That is kicking your ass.
That kicked my ass. You can't win if you don't try, and you can't lose if you don't if you don't fight. But you get
the old reporter is having a hard time with quotes.
He hasn't gotten it right yet, but I love the attempts, because you know what he hasn't done? He hasn't quit yet.
He
so can't.
That's right. I haven't quit yet. You're darn right. So what do you say, Dean?
Man, it's unfortunate that I missed Chuck today. Love that guy. Very profound dude. The stories, the history that he has, the way he puts it into words. Yeah, I could sit and talk to that dude all day long. Always enjoy the time that I spend with him. And so, yeah, man, I jumped in. I mean, and I caught that conversation. The bar has been lowered. I mean, and that limit, the limit. Oh, I caught my limit. Who decide? Why is 3 your personal goal?
Or you're killing it.
That word.
All of a sudden you're killing it with 3.
Whacked them and stacked them, boy. I stacked up 3 trout today. We whacked them. But, that term that is on limit is, I guess it's just kind of a weird thing that sets the bar. That sets an accomplishment. I limited out today. They like to put that picture of our limits, and just like Scott said, if I caught 3 trout, I'd be quite disappointed. My goal when I hit the door is to catch 100 trout a day. And I'm damn sure not going to stop when I get 3, and call it a day. That's, but it's just, hey, I'm glad the bar is set at 3 for the croaker chokers. And
I like that we can hear Carrie's in the background.
It's an Uber driver.
We came across some funky smell. We're on the road headed home from Austin, Texas today. And I don't know, man, somebody ran over a skunk or something, man. It's horrible.
It crawled in the back seat.
Yeah, you're riding next to it, Carrie. Before we let you go, this is a topic that we've had in the holster for a while, Dean. So I want to get it to you because you have been on a huge kayaking kick again, and it had been years since you've been kayaking. And I believe the way you put it, you said, man, John, we got to talk about the advantages of kayaking and the bliss and the what kayaking is all about. Are you back on kayaks, man?
Man, I have been lately. Yes, I have been, and I do. And it's crazy. So I posted a couple pictures of kayak trips. Immediately, I start getting messages and phone calls about people wanting to do trips. I don't guide kayak trips. It's kind of weird the way that worked. I mean, I spent the first 10, 15 years of my career in kayaks every single day, guiding, chasing people around. And it's a very physically demanding activity. I did it. So, and then one day I just walked away from it, man. I put my kayaks up and I did not get back in one almost 2 years. I can't explain how or why I walked away from that. But when I put that kayak in the water about 2 weeks ago, it was emotional for me.
That's what I was
It
going to ask.
was,
What's the bliss? You said the bliss.
man, it's just sitting in the kayak, gliding across the water. It's just the feel of it. It is a totally different experience than being in the boat, cruising across the water. You're immersed in nature. You're immersed in the environment. It is slow. Everything is a super slow pace. You observe every sand hole, every blade of grass, the birds that you get close to, the fish that bang into your kayak, as you're paddling along. It's, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but for me, for all of the years, and Scott gets it, man. We traveled across the country, we explored. It's a sense of adventure it's a higher level than being in the boat. Until you do it, until you experience it, I don't know. I try to explain it to people, but for me, for doing it for all those years, to get back in the kayak, it was it was a religious experience, man. It was amazing.
Hey,
It was
that's not an
overwhelming.
exaggeration. Yeah, that's
It,
not an
it was.
exaggeration. Yeah.
It was. And actually, Caleb, I sent him a bunch of videos. The one day that I was in there, I took time to set up the camera, shoot some stuff. We're gonna have a little angler you, and I would love to, to add a segment to start spending more time um, talking about kayaking and just the experience. I'm not going back to guiding. I'm not going back to what I was doing full time in that, but I will be spending more time with just myself sitting in the kayak.
I just hope
And
I just hope you edited out all those F-bombs you dropped on me. I called him, Caleb. I called him while he was kayaking, and a bunch of redfish kept hitting his kayak, and it was F this, and there's another F in this, and there's another F in that.
now that was quite a frustrating day. I'm sitting there with redfish swimming around me, and those fish were impossible to catch. But we had a great week, man. It was interesting where we had some days where the super low tide, they had them piled in some holes. I actually had them trapped in there. And then in the beginning, you're catching them, and then the schools start to get spooked, and then they're running around. And you give them 20 or 30 minutes, and you let them calm down, then you could catch another one.
Mm-hmm.
But the second and third day that we went back to those fish, you could just see how their mood changed. And then the third day when I was there, when I was talking to you, they were just impossible to catch. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So
All
what
right,
Dean
man.
says is
I'm gonna let you go real quick.
All
I'm gonna
right,
let you go,
guys, yeah.
Dean. Be safe,
Yeah.
and hopefully everything went all right with your doctor, man. All right, sir, Caleb. The stage
what
is
Dean's
yours, my man.
saying is he wants to start kayaking again, but he's not going to kayak and put up with your crap.
Yes, I want to kayak all the time, just not with you.
Right.
That's pretty much what I heard.
I tell you what, guiding kayaking fishing it's a pain. Somebody just put on here herding cats and a question mark, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's herding cats
Mm-hmm.
because that was my final day of kayak guiding. I took out 3 couples and I went ahead and brought my fast sit inside kayak, a touring kayak, because I knew I was
Mm-hmm.
going to have to be running around. Had a honking south wind. Went over on the island of Galveston, put them in the water, said, do not leave this marsh right here. Don't go past this point right here at the edge of the marsh. It's too windy. They're not experienced kayakers. So all day long, I'm paddling from one to the next. And that's the other thing with kayak fishermen, they spread out. On boat fishing, you got them all on your boat. You have control of where they are and what they're doing. Kayak fishing, they just wander off. They head over there and then they head over there. So I'm paddling from one to the other to check on everybody. 2 of the women broke rods that day, fighting fish under their kayaks, broke my rods. And then but all day long, I'd paddle around, I'd stop, and I'd do, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, got them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where is that son of a bitch? Oh, hell. Paddled over to a spot where I could stand up, park my kayak, stood up on the bank, and started looking, and I could see a dot out there in the middle of West Bay. I got my binoculars out, and I'm looking out there, and the dude is pointing at me, paddling, but he ain't coming towards me.
Yeah, because the wind.
He is hung up in the wind, and he has no idea what he's done. So I had to tell everybody, y'all gather up, y'all stay together. I'm going to go get him. And I paddled out there, and I tied onto him, and I had to drag him all the way back to the marsh.
Oh, against the wind.
Against the wind, paddling, pulling a kayak, and paddling my kayak. And that was the day I said, you know what? I'm going to do this from a boat from now on.
Yeah. The other thing that Dean was talking about multiple times, we've had this conversation, like when a boat, you do your full day, and you go fishing, catch your fish, whatever. But in kayaks, whenever he would say, all right, boys, or girls, all right, let's go on in. They're like, nah, no, I'm going to
You go in. We'll be there later.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I'll be all right. Just leave me out here. Yeah, I had that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you got to go ahead and go. No,
that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Like, yeah, go ahead. I got it. I got your kayak. I'll bring it. Yeah, okay, sure. And at midnight, you send out Coast Guard alerts and stuff.
Like trying to get your kid out of the toy aisle at Target.
Yeah, the toy aisle is basically what it is.
You'd have people that wanted to bring their own, bring their own kayak. Well, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Well, the problem was you didn't know what the hell they were bringing. Mm-hmm. And they would bring junk at times. I had one dude brought one that was sinking all day long. It had a leak. And all day long, we were pulling it up on the bank and draining it that we could go another 30 or 45 minutes till we had to do it again.
Mm-hmm. It did get me thinking, Caleb, and this is where you come in again. He mentioned Bliss. I don't know. I know you've kayaked, and I've kayaked, but not like these two cats. Where's your Bliss?
My kayaking was very similar to Scott's going and paddling into the wind.
You were that guy.
That's the one time I kayaked. This is the stupidest thing I've ever done.
No, I've done it. I still do it occasionally, and I'll probably end up doing it a little more here in the near future because I'm selling my boat at the boat yard and getting a new boat, and I'll be out of the boat for a while. But I probably kayak 3 or 4 times a year, but just for fun, and it has to be perfect conditions, etc. So I get what he's saying. It's awesome. But where's your Bliss?
Aside from giving you a hard time and messing with Scott about his daughter, like what kind of bliss are we looking for here?
You're on the water bliss.
Oh, on the water. Man, on my tower, just cruising around, looking at everything and sight casting fish. That's the one kind of fishing I don't get tired of. There's a lot of fishing that if I had to do it tomorrow, I'm kind of like, oh man, gotta go do that. But sight casting off my tower has never been one of them. So that's easily my happy spot.
I got to tell you, and my wife will back this up. I still have that childlike every time I go. And maybe it's because I've never guided and I'm always doing it on my own terms. But literally, like 12-inch trout, anything. Every time I go, I'm just it. Part of it is we're always so busy, all of us. But I go, all week long, do a bunch of stuff. I make that turn to whatever bay I'm getting into, and I see the water. It's like that's when the bliss starts. Like just being there, like just being, knowing that I'm going to get out on the water. And so maybe because I fish 2 or 3 times a week, not every single day. On a good week, 2 or 3 times, sometimes just once. But that's it. Just going. And I think the reason I brought that up, it brings it full circle to the conversation with Chuck Naiser, Caleb. I mean, I don't, as you get older, they say you're not as mad at them anymore. Well, I'm still mad at them, but I think you're just smarter, when it comes to the fish and what you're doing.
You've figured out what your ebb and flow is and what you like to do. I really enjoy being on that tower. I enjoy hunting them rather than fishing for them. I enjoy getting out of bed at 9 a.m. I enjoy getting off the water at 3:30 p.m. I mean, everything about sight casting just lines up to where there is nothing about it that eats at me or wears me out or is even inconvenient in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And once you live a life where you have to fish, where somebody makes you do it, then you start identifying the things that you really like and the things that uh, you enjoyed when it was on your own terms.
Mm-hmm.
I can go out and sight fish with people every day, and it's fun every day. My trouble is just waiting and blind casting. It could be great. I do it. I'm probably gonna be doing it with Wayne here, the next week or two. But it's not. It doesn't engage my brain and everything that I like to do. I get bored with it. I start thinking about my feet are stuck in the mud. This kind of sucks. So you just find what it is, and that's why I tell a lot of people when they're talking about guiding, I want to be a guide. What any tips? Well, figure out the kind of fishing you truly like to do, and run those trips from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying. That's the message I'm trying to say. Then it's a lot harder for it to become a job to you.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've enjoyed this podcast so much. I always call it my favorite hour of the week. That's no bullshit. I mean that it really is, because when I'm fishing with friends, fishing with you guys, of course, I enjoy just talking about different things.
Also something that somebody makes me do every week. Yeah.
That's right. But you love it. I think anyway. But no, I enjoy. If I'm not fishing, I like talking about it. So, all right. Before we let you guys go and do the what would Scott do and what would Caleb do, I'm going to ask you both the same question I asked Chuck, because we're not bang the drum, tree hugging. Oh my gosh, kumbaya. But I think we're realists about where we are with our habitat, the ecosystem, and fishing. So I'm going to ask you both, and Caleb, I'll start with you again this time. What are prospects? What are prospects for Cade and Cade's kids whenever he has some
prospects in
fishing
in fishing
as it pertains to with the conversation we had with Chuck?
Man, and so I try not to interrupt Chuck and Scott because they have their little flow of things, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not as educated in Flatsworthy as Scott is by any means, and I didn't really have the right to talk there, but I think that the prospects were slim to none. And then groups like Flatsworthy, CCA, even Chris Bush's Speckled Truth thing, where he's driving the initiative to catch and release, and those are the programs that are shaping the future for the kids. So the more people that can, throw the narrow-minded look they have at things to the side, and understand that it's not about what's fishing going to be like in 30 days. It's what is fishing going to be like in 30 years. And if you can get more people on that train, which I think they are, our podcast is got a lot of momentum. Speckled Truth has a lot of momentum. Flatsworthy, CCA, all that. And when you're gathering momentum, you tend to get more and more and more. And hopefully we ended up someday where, the bass guys are at and everything, where it's about the future 30 years from now and not the future 30 days from now. So I think that it's hopeful. I really do.
Scott, I've been on the water a whole lot, but when we were 15 and even now, you've been on the water a lot more than me. So you are absolutely, spanning several generations here of fishermen. What are the prospects for you?
If we can square away the habitat, we're going to be in much better shape. Things like what Chuck's doing there, rebuilding oyster reefs, all the stuff that CCA does, protecting habitat and restoring habitat. Without the habitat, we don't have the fish. And we can change limits. We can do all that all we want to. If the habitat isn't there to support them, then they won't be there. The pat ourselves on the back here. I bang the drum pretty hard on here, and sometimes I kind of wonder, how it's being recepted. I'm not really sure sometimes, when I get going. But the messages that I get have really supported it.
Me too, frankly.
I think we've changed a lot of minds. We've changed a lot of mindsets. I get that a lot, where I've had a lot of the younger guys come along and say, "Hey, man, me and my buddies, in college, we used to just go out there every weekend when we get out of school, and we'd take off down there and we'd load up and get a limit, get another limit the next day, and try to get another limit before we left to come home. And then it sat in the freezer and we didn't cook it.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that anymore. And I've heard that more than once. I've had multiple times guys walking up at the fishing show, same thing. And then the older guys coming along saying, "Hey man, I appreciate what y'all are doing because my grandkids are coming along and I want them to have something." And it's pretty cool. CCA gets a bad rap on a lot of things. I hear people complain about it. I don't agree with everything that CCA does. I don't agree with every stance they take. But without CCA, we wouldn't have anything to fish for right now. I can tell you that much because I saw where it was going when CCA was formed and where it got to, catching one redfish in an entire summer.
Yeah.
And being excited about it. It was a 14, 15-inch fish and being super excited that, hey man, I called all my buddies when I got home. I caught a redfish.
Yeah.
And now it's just commonplace. We got people saying we got too many redfish, which is just funny to me.
Yeah, shut your mouth.
Yeah. So that part of it, I think the redfish were going to be fine. Trout is, up in the air at this point. I think it's going to be a lot better. We're putting a lot more fish back in the water that would have been in coolers in the past due to the new limits. And like I said in the beginning, if we can get the habitat squared away, then I think we got something.
One of the things that I thought was pretty promising is, one of the things on the rundown was things you've been accused of, and I had a good one, but we'll say
that's going to be on next week's show.
We'll say that for next time. However, after the 21 freeze, I completely pissed off a bunch of the old timer guides in Matagorda, in a big way. And, talking the conservation, not even to them, just on my own channel, but it irritated them apparently. And then last week we had, I guess it was last week, we had Charlie Paradosky on the Angler U webinar. And Charlie was talking about ever since the freeze, he's went to primarily catch and release, and he doesn't throw stuff with a lot of treble hooks on it to tear the fish up. And when those old school guys that are incredibly set in their ways are making changes, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Man, very, very, we have a lot of fun on this show. We laugh every week, and we laughed today, but I thought it was a very important show today, and appreciate you guys. Just real quick, let's hit some, it is back to fishing, man. What would Caleb do? What would Scott do? Caleb, I'm looking at I was just recently looking at the weather, maybe a little bit of drizzle, but nothing too bad. Good weather in the high 60s. And water, I guess, is coming back a little bit. You tell me from Middle Coast.
Yeah, it's warming up. We're getting a little bit of stuff out of the east. Somebody said something about a front later in the week. I didn't even look for that, but this weekend looks pretty decent. It'd be hard for me to choose between Saturday or Sunday. Both are single-digit winds. You can go out wade, you can go out and drift. The water's still cool, so you can fish all day long, catch fish all day long. Me personally, I'd probably stay in the boat and drift around. However, with the warmer temperatures, it's going to be 60s, mid 60s. Sundays, a lot of sun. Saturday is cloudy. I'm kind of leaning towards Sunday just because the barometer is supposed to start dropping in the afternoon. But this weekend, looks like a pretty good one to go fish and do whatever the heck you want to do. I'd still probably fish a little bit low, quarter ounce jig heads, plastics, hopping them on the bottom through scattered shell and stuff like that. If I'm wading knee deep water on probably some sand flats, I don't think I'd be really hunting the mud. The temperature stabilizing and coming up some. I don't think they'll be in the mud. I think they'll be out sliding around in the sand.
That's good stuff, because I was just wondering about that for my purposes, where I wanted to go. I might be in a kayak for, who knows. Scott, you have anything?
Pictures.
Oh yeah, I'll be soaking wet. Scott, you got anything to add there?
Wear your stupid pants.
Exactly, wear the stupid pants.
This Friday, Saturday, Sunday all looks good. We got a little bitty front Friday night into Saturday morning, but it almost immediately switches back. So it's not a real big one. Single digits. Man, I'm looking at the beachfront and baby slipping out there
Oh
on the
Lord.
big boat, you know. I got the big boat in a sling now, so
Got
it's a
the
whole lot
itch.
easier for me just to slide it off that sling and get it going. Yeah, they're calling for 1.5 to 2s at 7 to 8 seconds.
All right, go out
And
there.
that's running full out, and maybe
Mhm.
get out there and go play with some state water snapper.
Yeah, that's another great idea. All right, man. That was really fun. I enjoyed that. You know it's enjoyable when I start writing down quotes, even though I'm misquoting them. But either way, you guys, and we're going to be at the fishing show. Like I said at the start of the show, we're batting lead off 5:30 on the 12th. We're all going to be there. It's going to be your questions. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be recorded. It's going to be a podcast. Hell, I just downloaded a new. It wasn't that expensive either, but I downloaded a new video app, Caleb. So I may even do some video out there with some of our stuff. But appreciate it, you guys, and appreciate Chuck joining us as well. You guys have a great week, great weekend. Catch them up. We will talk to you next time.
John says, when a tree falls on a glass house, a bear shits in the woods if you can hear it.